and welcome to a brand new Geek Bite here, brought to you by the
Geek Buddies.
Hey! He's hanging out with us as well. Welcome, everyone. We are doing a spoiler review on this Geek Bite here for The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, Through the Valley. We have wiped our tears. We have taken showers, cold showers to recover from the events of Episode 2, directed by Mark Mylod and written by Craig Mazin. And wow, what an episode here. This is a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen it, turn back. But if you don't care or have seen it, then stick around. We're going to break it all down for you. I am John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor, where you can see me on the full season right now, 2 episodes of The Pit on Max.
Nice. Oh, well, in this episode, we had so much happen here. Basically, we had Ellie and Joel here separated out, going on separate patrols, and we find out that Abby and her wolf companions are back here close to how we left off in the last episode, them watching the Jackson situation here, and we see that Abby finds her way stumbling through some dead bodies. It's chased down in one of the harrowing chase scenes here with little infected hands piercing through fence skin, and then eventually she winds up being saved by Joel, is taken back to her wolf companions, and she eventually takes out her revenge out on Joel and leaves him there dead for Ellie to witness. And on the other side in Jackson, we had all this stuff happening here with the infected crashing through into Jackson, and especially this big bad mother here, confronting everybody there. And at the end, it is a massive, just a massive wake-up call to everybody about the power of the infected and the intelligence of the infected now, which we'll get to, and their ability. So, Michael, what did you think of this episode overall? A lot of emotions, a lot of action. What are your thoughts here as you have like a day since you've seen it?
I mean, it's pretty boring.
Yeah.
It was great. It was fantastic. So I'm currently playing, I started like a week before. I'm playing Last of Us 2, and I'm trying, it's hard with the new job and everything, but I'm trying to stay ahead enough of the show that I'm in front of what happens, but behind enough that I don't know everything. So it's a tricky balance. It's a tricky balance if you played the game, particularly because a lot of things do happen out of order. But so I knew last week, like I was doing the math in my head. And I'm like, they might be able to draw things out for another week, but it's at just another week. Like it's either happening episode 2 or episode 3, the big turn, the big death. And so I kind of knew going in that was going to happen. Right. But what I didn't know was this entire attack on Jackson was going to go with it, because that is nowhere in the game. That's fully in the show. And it was spectacular. I mean, the way that, in my opinion, the way that they adapted what happens in the game with the Abby and Joel stuff, it's like, some of the shit is shot for shot. It's amazing. They did a great job. As much as I knew it was going to come, it was so brutal to watch in real life. But then to have this whole attack on Jackson happen where you really didn't know I had no idea who was going to die, what was going to go down. And honestly, kudos to them for, in the second season of their show, doing basically a giant zombie attack that I think beats anything that Game of Thrones did ever. Like, I think the way that they handled everything, watching the way the people of Jackson had built their defenses, watching things go the way it did, watching the way that the infected are growing smarter and are starting to strategize. Like, it was just a thrill a minute while this other super harrowing thing that is one of the turning points of the story in the game happened. And it was just, that's a packed episode. I mean, that's like, it's one of the best episodes of TV I've seen in a real long time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Shannon, your thoughts on this episode 2 here of season 2 of The Last of Us?
Outstanding television, just outstanding storytelling. So the Joel's Fate, when we were reviewing season 1, I accidentally came upon Joel's Fate. I did not know circumstances that surrounded it. I knew who did the deed, and I knew that he died. But I for sure didn't think it was going to be this early in the story. Like, I actually texted Vogel afterwards because I know he was playing the game. And is it this soon in the game? And, like, yeah, which I have so many thoughts about that. I mean, just going back, looking at what the game did, what a gutsy move to basically knock off one of your lead character, one of your lead characters. Yeah, this was just supremely well done. I mean, and having no indication that battle was coming from last week's episode. Like, I thought it was going to be a little bit more of a slow burn, that they would start to notice the cordyceps, that it wouldn't just be, hey, there was a 30 infected underneath. There's some dead bodies, like insulating themselves. Like, the fact that it happened so fast and so it was just really, really impressive. I mean, again, just edge of my seat the whole time.
Well, yeah, I thought the episode was brilliantly constructed in the fact that, look, they're going to kill off one of these central characters, right? And certainly, as we've seen in Red Wedding and other shows, like, people get like super into it, then they get really mad afterwards. And apparently, people were really mad when this sequel to The Last of Us came out, video game format, and the thing happened to Joel. A lot of people were upset about it. It's still a divisive game in a lot of ways for people's reaction to it. So, but I think what they did to minimize the anger of the fans is they balanced the show out with this other escape from certain death sequence in Jackson, having them be heroic, having his brother fight back and use the flamethrower and take down that massive Bubba that confronted him in the corner, and have Jackson survive. So you balance out inspiring moments with heartbreaking moments, and I think that was a genius move to combine them. And Michael, you're the first time I'm hearing that this isn't in the game. So I think that was a smart decision to combine these two sequences into the same episode, so that you felt, although you felt heartbroken by the end, you also felt inspired the fact that Jackson also didn't die. Like, the entire town wasn't wiped out. So you don't feel necessarily completely bereft of any hope. You feel like, okay, there's still possibilities here, even though we've lost Joel. So I thought that was great. Yeah.
I think I didn't think about it that way, but I think that's a really good point, that as upsetting and horrible as Joel's death is, you do get this really big win. You do get good triumphing over evil. You get a thing of like, this was great, while holy shit, this happened. So I think you're right. I think that really tonally does balance things out in a way that goes, because there's definitely been shows, I'm looking at you, Walking Dead, that they reach a point, like Walking Dead reached a point where it was like, I get that a zombie apocalypse is harrowing and I get that people are going to die, but it reached a point where I was like, this isn't fun to watch.
Right.
It's so upsetting. It's so depressing. And I have a really high tolerance, but I even reached a point, I'm like, guys, you're breaking my heart every week. Like, I can't. And you're right. This breaks your heart. Yeah. But also it gives you this moment. And then and we'll get into this, and it creates a really interesting thing in the character of Abby, a character who you logically know is justified, but you still hate her. Like, it's and how that is treated for the rest of the season, given where some of the game goes, is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, let's because I'm gonna break this review up into two sections. Everything that happened with Joel, Ellie, and Abby is in one section, and then the town. So let's deal with the Joel, Ellie, and Abby thing. I hit just some quick points. The episode begins with Jesse and Ellie busting each other's chops after the kiss with Dina the night before. So we're picking up right after the dance and everything that happened there. And Ellie is, Jesse is asking Ellie about the relationship with Joel. And Ellie's like, I'm still me, he's still Joel. Nothing's going to change that. They stumble upon a 7-Eleven after things are getting kind of hairy. We hear more about Eugene, which I think is going to be an interesting thing. He was a former Firefly. He served in Vietnam. He was growing weed. So that's interesting. And then when we hear about the fact that Joel had to take him out, Ellie has a look on her face of like, yeah, I don't want to say too much, because it seems like that death, there's some interesting things around that death of Eugene. So I'm going to be interested to see how they explore that more. But anyway, we hear that Joel and Dina are in trouble. So Ellie takes off while Jesse goes in a different direction. But Abby gets caught up in the snow after she's patrolling, and she's bitching. She's like complaining how cold it is, that she has to be out there for an hour. So it's an interesting decision to hear that from Abby. But then she's trying to navigate something and then goes right into essentially a graveyard of these infected. And then they wake up because we find out they've been using the infected on the top ground to keep the other infected warm, which is insane. So they bust out of this thing. They chase Abby all through to the Jackson compound. She jumps through. She jumps out through the fence. Joel saves her, and then she's initially happy, and then we hear Dina call Joel, and immediately Abby is ready to wreak vengeance. But eventually they take off on the horses. She convinces them to go back to her place because she knows she has her wolf soldiers there. Just in that moment when things are happening at Jackson, which we'll get to, Joel sees it from the mountaintop, could turn around, but Abby talks him into going to the house. And then when they get there, they take Dina out for an hour by putting her to sleep with that serum. And then Abby takes out her revenge as smugly and snidely as she can, slowly as she can. And then Ellie, who has been searching for Joel, stumbles upon them, gets in there. She cuts Danny Ramirez, I think, and then she's eventually subdued and has to watch Joel die, who has been hit with a golf club and then beat with the fists. And to add insult to injury, when Ellie says she's going to kill them all, they kick her in the gut, leave her alive because they don't think she's a threat to them, and walk out, leaving her with the body of Joel. So hell of a thing to explore. So let's talk about this. Michael, I'll go to you again first. Your thoughts on this, your thoughts on how this all went down, how it was played out, and Abby's actions as she is killing Joel.
Yeah. Well, your opinion is clear based on your description of the events, of said events. Yeah, look, Abby, like you are supposed to hate Abby for what she does. Like and you know, like even when they, at the beginning of this episode where they have that dream sequence where Abby is talking to herself going into the room where she finds her dead dad. Like we said this last week, if you told a different version of this story where Abby was a young firefly whose father was trying to save humanity and a guy came in and shot everybody and Abby decided to hunt down the man that killed her father, and you didn't know who Joel was or where he came from or why he made the choices he did, you'd be on Team Abby. We just didn't get that story. We followed Joel. And we love Joel and we know why he did what he did. And so, and that really does get to, that's not me trying to justify Abby. That's literally what the core of the game story is. And that's what this story is, the story in the season. Like that's thematically what this show is about. Yeah. So the whole thing, again, a lot of this, the very first scene in the game is that scene where, is it Jason comes to get Jesse, where Jesse comes to get Ellie. And that's where you start things off. Like, so they really did adhere really closely to the game. And aside from a couple key differences, for example, when Joel meets Abby for the first time, he's not with Dina, he's with Tommy. It's Joel and Tommy that find Dina, and Tommy is there when Joel gets killed too. Dina and Ellie are off together. So like they did move some things around, mainly so that Tommy could be in Jackson for the whole scene that we'll talk about a little later. Yeah. But I think it's really good that Abby's a good actress. It's good that they have someone as good as she is, because in a lesser actress's hands, this character goes one note and doesn't get to be as complicated as I think she's going to have to be in the series. Yeah. But the way that it all goes down, like the other part that's different is her waking up the whole horde of infected that are under the snow. That's horrifying.
Yes, it is.
That, not just in the concept, which I was watching something on YouTube, is kind of based a little bit like in the same way that the infected are sort of all based around fungus and the way fungus work. mushrooms do go into a dormant state when things get like too cold or too whatever. And then when the top mushrooms feel that it's good to come out again, the mushrooms that were underneath are like, cool, we good. So it's science light that they did this, but like when she's standing there, and particularly because we already got the information from Jesse that this was a thing, when you see that one infected's head turn and look at her, and then they just start sinking down and everything sort of comes out, and the way it's shot, like, it's a hard thing with zombie movies because there are so many different versions out there, from, you know, Night of the Living Dead to 28 Years Later, which is coming out. We've had so many different versions of zombies that doing anything new is hard to do.
Right.
And everything that we saw in the way that they came up out of the snow, the way it was all done, like, it all felt new, and it was just horrifying. And then when she runs into the place where she runs and the whole gate falls, that's right out of the game. Like, I just played that recently, where you're crawling under the thing and the thing is falling and they're all reaching for you. And yeah, the second she meets Joel, I was thinking about what Shannon said last week, where Shannon was like, I'm curious to see what's happened. Are they going to come into Jackson and pretend that they're doing this and ingratiate themselves to the community? And as he was talking, I was like, no, that would have been a good idea, but that's not how that's going to go. And the second that she meets Joel, I think, you know, everyone is kind of, you're just waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're like, fuck, how's this going to go? How is this going to go? And then, yeah, you're right. The second that she realizes who he is, she does everything to get him back up into that house with the other guys that are the rest of her team. And it's brutal to watch. In the game, you don't know that that's what she's doing. The big difference, and a lot of people are arguing about this right now online, as they're like, which is better, the game or the TV show? In the game, you play Abby for the first part of the game. You play Abby and Ellie, and you're playing Abby, and you have no idea. She's this person. She's looking around. She meets Joel and Tommy. She helps them get away. They get back up to her place, and then out of nowhere, she says his name. Everybody turns on him, and she shoots him in the knee. And until that point, you had no idea that that's what she was doing. Whereas with the show, they set it up. We knew what she was doing. She gets more of a chance to sort of monologue and tell her side of the story, which some people in the gaming community think was a little too expository. They didn't love. I liked it. I thought it really gave her a chance to sort of tell her side of the story. Ellie coming in when she does and seeing everything, that Joel dying is sad to me. Ellie coming in and having to watch it and being unable to stop it is what makes it a tragedy.
Yes.
Like, that is what makes it horrible, particularly knowing that the very last time they interacted was her yelling at him in front of everybody at the party.
Yeah.
And that there was a chance that she was going to go with, she was like, I'll go with Joel. And then Jesse was like, well, he wanted to go with you, but he wanted to let you sleep in. Just the idea that there's a world where these two got to spend a little bit more time together. And the fact that that was robbed from them, that's what makes it a tragedy. And then just a correction on your very biased description. They don't leave Ellie alive because they don't think she's a threat. They don't want to kill anybody, except Abby's the only one, aside from Falcon, who gets a little pissy in that moment. But in general, they make a really strong case, more so than the game does, that the rest of them are like, we're along for this ride because Abby is going through it. But like, we don't want to deal with this, particularly when they see how big Jackson is. They're like, we want to get the fuck out of here. Like, we don't want any part of this. And even when Abby threatens Dina and all those moments, like, they very clearly are like, we aren't down for all of this. So I do think they make a big, strong case, more so than the game does, that that's a thing. And I'm curious to see where that goes. If we catch up with them later in the season. But that's my broad thoughts.
I will have a counter argument in a little bit. Shannon, your
shocking.
Your thoughts on what we got here to open the show, and then where we went to with Abby, Joel, and Ellie.
I mean, just again, exquisitely done. You know, seeing the lodge that they've kind of taken up shelter in the light of day, they see sort of the insurmountability of what Abby wants to do. I mean, I really like that guy who's playing Owen. That as after Abby has left, and his just like, oh yeah, I've got a plan. We're gonna leave. Like, this is we are all gonna die if we try to do this. I did think when Abby is so blinded by rage,
Yeah.
The moment she sees two people on horseback, she's like, I'm gonna go get them. She didn't go back to the lodge to try to get back up. And this is ultimately, and again, I've clearly been wrong already this season. But that's sort of my guess, is like, this is what is going to lead to the deaths of her friends, is how much she is blinded by rage.
Yeah.
The sequence at the copper mine with as the infected. I mean, John and I are watching a show on Apple right now called Dope Thief, and there was a very similar sequence where Brian Tyree Henry is under a car as the tires have been shot out, and you see sort of just this claustrophobic effect of like, I'm getting shot at, but I'm also going to get crushed by this car. Which fate is worse? But as she's running scurrying under that fence, again, having not played the game, I'm like, this is so well done. And looking at the links that the infected will go to try to eat, that you see one of them, like literally the chain link fence piercing their hand. I mean, again, that is just one of those things, like, as when you're in a writer's room coming up with ideas, that's the type of thing, like, it is horrifying to watch. But in the room, it's like, you know what would be really freaking cool? What about if this happened? But the moment that they saved Abby, there was in my head, I'm like, it wouldn't be the second episode. Like, no, they're gonna take him. They're gonna take him back to Jackson Hole. Like, that's clearly what's gonna happen. So after they get there and you see that change in Abby, it's interesting how Michael's point of view is she is justified in her actions. I think justified in the end result, not how she did it, because even looking at the faces of her compatriots, she tortured him, and she wasn't interrogating him, she was torturing him. That is psychopathic behavior right there. And granted, having a parent be murdered, is that enough to warrant a psychopathic break? Yeah, probably. But even her friends are telling her, like, end it, like, it's enough. And they talk about how cold the lodge is. By the time Ellie gets up there has been so much physical exertion from this one person beating that Abby is sweating. So you see, I mean, obviously you can see Joel, the pounding that he has taken, but knowing that this has been going on for a while. And I do think, looking at the rest of her team, I think Danny Ramirez's character is the only one who is on board with Abby's actions, because
she wanted to kill Ellie.
Oh yeah, well, she fucking cut him. But I think it just presents that really interesting moral argument of, like, this is already, the team is fractured because they are not down with how things transpired. Poor Ellie. I mean, again, everything with Ellie and Jesse, like the weed shop in the 7-Eleven, that was all great. That moment when he basically says, her hooking up with Dina, that he was just like, I'm just kidding. I knew about that. I didn't care. But seriously, that's jacked up. Like, these are all concerns that are very much in the rearview mirror now. But the moment that she is watching Joel's last moments, and this is something that happens definitely with teenagers, because teenagers think they know everything, but it happens with adults as well. I mean, of all ages, that you think about all the terrible things that you did to someone and the inability to be able to repair that because they die. Like, that was just, you saw all of that on Bella Ramsey's face, and again, just so masterfully done. Now, I do agree with Vogel. They do have a little bit of a code. That is why they didn't kill her. But from a tactical standpoint, what a huge mistake.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Why do you leave two witnesses alive who know your faces and saw your faces? I don't see the logic in that, but okay.
We're in a post-apocalyptic world. What are they going to call 911? Like, what do you like? They can identify them. Like,
they're just going to run back to a massive town with all these people that might chase them down eventually. So
those people are a little bit occupied right now.
Well, right. They didn't know that. Anything more, Shannon? Are you good?
No, okay. That was it.
Here's what I say. I thought it was fantastic. The way they bring you into it, and you guys alluded to already, the fact that you're hearing Jesse and Ellie, they're busting each other's balls a little bit, but Ellie is clearly, saying, I'm going to figure things out with Joel, and he's who he is, and I'm who I am. But right now, he's just, it's just a lot right now, and I'm trying to process it all. And as you said, Shannon, she's a teenager, so you can feel a little bit of does it get on your nerves a little bit, like last episode? Yes, it does. But then again, she's a teenager, and you don't know what you were like as a teenager because you weren't there watching yourself, and so it's those things that you experience. So I like that, and they make you feel comfortable, and then they lay little mysteries like the weed stuff, and he was a firefly. What does this mean? How was Eugene killed? So it gives you enough mystery, and then boom, we're into this situation here where we see everything with Abby and what she goes through, and the show does a brilliant job of making you sympathize with her and wanting her to survive from these hordes of things coming after her. So it also makes you question things too. When she survives and gets out of there, Joel saves her, but she still wants her vengeance on Joel. And I think it was last episode that I think Craig Mazin said this. That's the thing about this show, is that how many times are you participating in the cycle of violence? How many times are you continue? Because you're like saying, well, I need vengeance on that person. But then when you take vengeance, someone else is going to take vengeance on you. Yeah. And it never ends. And if you don't come to terms with the loss and you don't accept the loss, and we saw Joel dealing with that last episode in the therapy session, then you're just going to keep perpetuating the cycle. And so now with the death of Joel, is Ellie now going to essentially become the Abby for this show, chasing down Abby to make revenge for Joel? So it's going to be curious where we go from here, and how Ellie, because we see her in the trailer for next episode, like training like Rocky up there. And so is that where we're going to go? Her and Dina now going together. And I also think the Dina situation, casting is so essential in shows like this. Isabella Merced, last episode, really established herself well as the character of Dina. They have great chemistry. So if Joel is going to die, Ellie is not alone. Dina is going to slide into that Joel role, not as a mentor, but certainly as someone she can trust in the world to help her carry out this stuff and be the second part of the duo. And I think that's important as well. Ellie has Jesse. There's other people now. So it's a different approach. Even Seth apologized to Ellie, even though she was kind of bitchy about it. Seth apologized for making the comments that he made to her that were offensive the night before. So you see that there are people who do want to care for Ellie. Joel is leaving her in a better spot than when he found her, and that's a positive. So where does this go from here? I don't know. The Abby stuff, man, I agree with you, Shannon. She tortured him. That's no longer vengeance. That's psychopathy. And every time one of them tried to stop her, she threatened to kill Dina. She told one of them to shut the fuck up. And then she's clearly a person who is ruling these people, even though arguably she's the smallest of the entire crew, and they could take her out if they wanted to, but they're all afraid to take her out and clearly just want to get this over with. But they all witnessed this. They all watched her beat a man with a golf club and then beat a man with her fists to death until eventually stabbing him in front of a young girl. So the fact that Abby couldn't see that she is now passing on her trauma to another person by killing them in front of her is something that is going to be interesting to explore as the show goes along. But I thought it was really well done. And you're right, Mike. Thank God it's KAITLYN Dever. I think another actress would have irritated the piss out of me. But KAITLYN did such a great job with it, frustrating you, but then you understood at the same time. And then, when it's all over, you're just like, oh my God, I want them to kill him, So.
The one thing I will say to both of your comments, because I don't disagree with anything you say. But
here comes my disagreement.
No, it's less a but and more of an and.
Okay.
What Abby does to Joel is absolutely a psychotic break. It is absolutely a little sociopathic. Yes. She is absolutely continuing the cycle of trauma and violence.
Yeah.
Every single thing that you said, if you switch out the name Joel for Abby, applies to the end of season 1.
100%.
He absolutely 100%. Has a psychotic break. What he does in that base is absolutely sociopathic behavior. And even the thing that Abby says to him, where he's like, one of the nurses said, "You barely looked at my dad." If you go back and watch it, that's what happens. He's like, "You can't be here." And he doesn't even look at him. He just shoots him and he's dead. And so everything you're saying is true. what's interesting about the show is we went with Joel on the journey. So even though we watched it and we were like, this is a little uncomfortable, we're on Team Joel. We love Joel and Ellie. We watch them together. But everything that Abby does here, as much as Shannon's right, like, this isn't revenge. This is sociopathic. Same thing for Joel. So it's what's interesting about the show is not that Abby is better or worse or whatever. They're all bad people. They're all dealing with their trauma. But Joel lost his daughter, and that led to him ultimately having this moment where he's like, I'm saving Ellie no matter what, and had a psychotic break. Abby lost her father, went on this journey and got to this moment and had a psychotic break. And now Ellie has lost her father.
Right.
And the cycle continues. So it's just interesting the way that when we watched season 1, you two weren't like, what Joel did was sociopathic. That is wrong. But it was.
I've got to counter. I don't think so. And I disagree with you, because Joel's doing it to save someone.
Exactly, Johnny.
Abby is doing it to exact vengeance. And I think that's, and by the way, it's vengeance 5 years later. That's how much she hasn't healed, that it feels like her father died yesterday. That's how much she hasn't healed, right? Whereas with Joel, he didn't want to care for Ellie. The fact that he eventually did care for her, we see that Joel, and look, I'm not trying to excuse Joel. Joel is clearly a murderer. He's done some terrible things that are alluded to in order to survive. In no way am I trying to say, he's better. I'm just saying, if you look at the way that the deaths were carried out, one was carried out with delicious, slow-paced torture. One was carried out with indifference. And one was to save someone from what was going to be killed, and another is just to mete out vengeance. And I think that's the difference. But I can concede that both of them are psychopathic in their own way. But I give Joel a little more edge because he was doing it to save somebody life.
And I guess what I'm saying is, we can do that all day. And this is what we do as humans. We're justifying one set of behaviors and we're saying the other is wrong. But what's interesting to me is, and I think what's interesting to the showrunners is, it's less about that. And it's more about watching these people dealing with trauma and doing something that continues to cause more trauma.
Right,
Joel, yes, saved Ellie, but in robbing her of being able to make that choice, which the Fireflies were also guilty of, did this thing that caused issues for them for 5 years. So it's just going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. And I don't think it's going to go in the direction that any of us are expecting.
Well, and I think we'll see what happens with that as it goes along. Well, let's move on to anything more to say on this?
Honestly, I don't know. Shannon, based off the Penguin, I think I got a higher batting average than these two.
Oh my God! All right, anything more to say on this, Shannon? Are you good? Should we move on?
No. I think we're all going to be on the same page for this next part.
Yeah. So we go to Jackson here. Let's talk about that. The infected, because they've been woken up by Abby, the infected arrived en masse at the community gates area. And this is an amazing action scene. I mean, them running through the snow with such ferocity and such speed, and then ending up slamming into the wooden walls of the fort. And we had heard earlier, Tommy was giving everybody advice on what to do. Go to the roofs. What do? You walk through, make sure everything is ready. And then we see kind of like an old school medieval fort, that they've got these little ramps that they throw down these barrels of gas, that they shoot them off one at a time. And then eventually they set them on fire and see these massive explosions. And it isn't until this massive hoss shows up that they finally breach the walls. And when they breach the walls, they're running through the street. They jump onto the roofs eventually. We see Maria shooting all those people and trying to survive. We see Tommy taking out the big hoss there, as I mentioned earlier. But by the end, there have been some losses, and they've all survived. But we also know that they opened a pipe, and now those whatever thing is, the fungus there, is cordyceps is there. So very interesting to see if they're going to deal with that, if they're going to be aware of that, or if the guy who saw it died. So there's going to be a lot. And what is the after effect and ramifications of this? It's going to be real interesting to see. So Shannon, you're our action guru. What did you think of this entire battle sequence and scene all the way to the end here?
So typically, like the comparisons to like Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon are inevitable. One, because there is just such a large scale of, you know, spectacle, and the HBO-ness. Typically, and my memory might not be perfect. Typically, what happens in a Game of Thrones big action scene, there's a little bit of a lead up. Like you kind of have an idea that one is on the horizon. Now, we've all seen the promotional materials for season 2, so we knew that there was going to be a big battle in the snow. But the fact that it happened, it was sort of introduced in this episode. Now, I know in the first episode that when they crack open one of those pipes, you do see some of the cordyceps, but the speed in which everything transpired, I think that's the thing that was really kind of stunning, because you know, we watch a preview and we start to construct what we think the show or the film is going to be in our heads. And this one just nailed the gas. Like I have no clue where the rest of the season is going to go, because that I was assuming this is going to be second to last episode. In Game of Thrones style, the penultimate episode. But just the way that you see that this is not the first time that Jackson Hole has been under attack. Like they have had to deal with raiders before. This is something that they have probably speculated and planned out. I mean, hence, you know, those, you know, that tracking with the barrels and everything. Just watching the planning that went in from a production standpoint. I mean, this was just such a huge undertaking, and it was so well executed. I mean, it's interesting that you both had kind of the opinion that at the end, it's like, well, this was a little bit of hope, because they did win. Like we lost Joel, but we did win. I took such a different approach to it, because I'm like, they took a big black eye here. I mean, this was, I mean, one of the last things that we see is one of the guys who was shooting have a bite mark, literally hand someone a pistol. You see that Jackson Hole, it is in ruins. It is on fire. There is a giant hole in that wall that has protected them for, you know, however many months, however many years. But the really great thing was Gabriel Luna. Like, the way Tommy is described, that we kind of see in the first season, is he's a bit of a screw up. And by the time they are reunited, we see that he's married, he has a child, like he's grown up. And with this, you see what kind of leader he has become. As the infected have breached the wall, and you see those 4 guys with the blow torches, and 2 of them take off, just seeing the damage that the bloater did, Tommy's instinct to be like, I need that thing to chase me, because otherwise it's going to do what all these other things are doing, which is get inside the structures, get on the roofs. That fight that he had, I mean, it's interesting that Vogel said this isn't in the game, because I'm like, that is a video game fight where you are running like hell from this thing that is chasing you, and you are running out of ammo at the same time. So watching how this thing just gets torched and finally falls down defeated. This was just such a spectacular sequence. There was one little moment that I had when they saw the bloater, why they didn't just start opening fire on it. And when the infected sort of changed trajectory, like they'd been attacking that one wall, and then they all moved. Like I wish that had been referenced, because I don't know why they did that. I mean, obviously they found a weakness in the structure. I just wish that is something that we had seen. It looked like Tommy just said they're about to breach when he saw the bloater. And I was like, oh, I didn't see anything that led me to believe that they were about to punch through the wall. Maybe based off of Vogel's expression, I clearly missed something. But again, the sequence all in all was just so well done. And I hope it's not the last one that we see this season, because you know, you just want to go bigger and better, and this one was outstanding.
Yeah. Michael, your thoughts on this entire sequence here at Jackson Hole, and then the ramifications afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, look, like Shannon's right. We're kind of trained to expect this level of action near the end of a season, because you do want to build to something huge. And so coming in second episode of season 2 and just going this hard this quickly, is shocking, which is, I think, worked really to this episode's advantage. I love good setup. And I just loved, you know, having Tommy sort of speaking to everybody at the beginning. And they did a good job of not telegraphing it. Like the whole scene where he's talking to everybody inside and he's like, all right, guys, you know, it's like hope for the best, plan for the worst. If something happens, you guys go to the walls, women and children and people who are infirm go down, we go up. Like he laid everything out. Yep. And the reason that's so good is because then when everything went to shit and everyone started running around, you as the audience know exactly what's happening. Yeah, we had been informed. So we didn't have to have but like shit went and like a bunch of women and old people went downstairs. The men and women that were good shooters went up to the top. They hit the roofs. So like they did such a good job of pre-planning you as the audience that you were just like in on it right away. It was amazing. One correction for Johnny and one for Shannon. Oh, okay. Abby let all of those infected out.
Yeah.
It was the guy that touched the cordyceps in the pipe that directed them to Jackson. They didn't just wake up and run to Jackson. They were chasing Abby. It was the reason that the cordyceps, I think they're now aware and they're going to get rid of it. We'll see next week. I don't think that got lost, but it might have been. But that guy removed those branches, touched the cordyceps, and just like in the second episode of season 1, all those fucking infected changed direction immediately like a flock of birds and booked it to Jackson because of the weird fungal network. And similarly, and I feel like they said this, but maybe they didn't, but the bloater was the signal. That bloater started heading towards the wall. Tommy saw that big ass thing headed for the wall, and then he saw all of the infected turn to run to the bloater. And he was like, they're going to breach. It was another sign that the infected not only are communicating with each other, which we sort of knew from the way that we understood season 1, but they're now thinking strategically as well, just like the infected we saw in the first episode. So the bloater was the breach. Like that thing is a fucking battering ram all by himself. And the fact that they all ran to surround him as he was going through, it's just another sign of the strategic level of thinking. So that was all great. It was one amazing thing after another. Like I said earlier, we've seen zombie battles. We've seen the long night in Game of Thrones. We've seen all of these things. So when you're watching this and you're like, all right, well, this is awesome. And seeing a horde of infected run at a wall is great, but what are you going to do here? And it was such a great build of, we've got all the guns, we're taking these guys out. Then we're dropping the gas canisters, and like even the way that like those sort of ramps dropped down, as they rolled them out and then shot them to get all that fire. You're like, okay, that's fucking smart. And then everybody on the rooftops, and then Maria on the rooftop, and then the infected get up to the rooftop and start ravaging there. And then when they let the dogs out, like it was just every single thing that happened was like, oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck. So it showed that Jackson was fucking prepared. I mean, Shannon's absolutely right. They did get a big black eye. They didn't come out of this unscathed, but they were very prepared for something. And even when something happened on this scale, they made it through, which in this world where they're all at is a win by any stretch. But in addition to showing that they were prepared, it was just a feast for the action eyes. It was one fun and exciting thing after another. And it left you a little bit breathless. Like when you get to the end and Tommy and Maria run to each other and sort of kiss each other because they survived, even as you are watching the fact that a lot of people didn't make it and that they didn't do it. Shannon's right about that, but I still felt like that. Look, if you're still standing, this is a win. If you're still standing and yes, there's a giant hole in the wall, but the wall is still there. Like this could have easily turned in to an entirely different situation. I did have to look up, in case anybody is concerned, that the infected, much like fungi and cordyceps, only infect humans. It's the reason we don't see a bunch of infected horses running around. And it's a reason, because there was a minute where I was like, look, this is awesome, but did you just fucking kill those dogs? But dogs don't get infected, so it's cool. Like, I was like, all right, fine. Like, sure, maybe dogs could get ripped apart, but like, I was like, if a dog bites an infected, what? And so I looked it up because I was very concerned. So if anyone else was as concerned as me, now you know it's cool. It's cool.
I like that your thought was the welfare of the dog. Mine was They've just made a worse weapon.
Oh, I was worried. I was like, look, I want y'all to survive, but don't kill those dogs.
I mean, that close up on the dog biting the neck, I was like, okay, here we go. I love it. Yeah, not much to add what you guys said. I thought that it was really well directed. Mark Mylod did a great job directing this episode with the action sequences. I mean, that shows you a great director can direct phenomenal action sequence along with these intimate, heartbreaking, tragic moments. This is the one they submit for the Emmy, I think, so far. I don't know if another episode's going to beat this season.
I think so.
This is the one you submit. It's just so well constructed. Yeah. Shannon, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, out of the two that we've seen, this is
right,
the one.
Fair point. Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen next week?
Good point. But like this is so well constructed in the twists and the turns that happen here. And you guys are right. You mentioned Game of Thrones, you mentioned some other HBO fare we've seen with massive battles, even Walking Dead, with battles with the Walking Dead attacking and all of that, and the inevitability of it all. And that's what's so fascinating about it, and the sounds and everything, and the fact that these are adapting. And we got the hint of that from the last episode, right? Like Ellie saying how this thing was hunting me, was stalking me. So now we know that these things actually are starting to think even more on a grand scale, on a military tactical scale. They're thinking, which is unsettling as hell. Having Tommy be the one who doles out. I don't know how much Tommy was involved with the military tactic planning and how much Maria and others were involved with their input, but this thing was well laid out. And as you said, Michael, the stages, the oh fuck stages worked really well in how they put them together. But by the end, they survive, and that's all you can do in this madness. But they have one more casualty coming amidst all the casualties that they suffered, and that's Joel, who they're bringing back. So and we see the trailer for next episode. It's going to be real interesting to see how Tommy reacts and how Ellie reacts to all the loss of Joel.
Yes. I'm far enough into the game that I know the answers to both of those questions.
Okay.
But you brought up Game of Thrones, and the other thing I do think I want to say, there's a lot of times that we talk about how shitty geek culture and fandoms can be.
Sure.
I don't know why this is the one area where geek fandoms do really well, but if this episode is just like the Red Wedding in Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones fans who read the books knew for multiple seasons what was going to happen at the Red Wedding. And nobody said nobody on Twitter, people didn't say a goddamn word. I sat with these two guys on my couch watching the Red Wedding episode, and knowing what was going to happen, I spent half the episode watching them because I knew they were going to be shocked. And I don't know why, as shitty as geeks can be, and as much as we all post spoilers, and then people are like, why do you post spoilers? I didn't watch the episode yet. Fuck you. And you're like, you should have watched it when it come out. Fuck you. And like everybody yells at each other. This is another one. People who have played the Last of Us game have known this was going to happen.
Yes.
And by and large, shut the fuck up about it. Which I do love that every once in a while, geeks know that keeping the secret is going to be better than being the asshole that spoils it. Right.
There were a lot of illusions. You could maybe read between the lines, but no one flat out said it. That's a great point. And so, so now we deal with the ramifications. And there have been some people threatening to not watch anymore. So it's going to be interesting to see what the numbers are in the next episode, in the next couple episodes, to see if that.
Do you see what Pedro Pascal said? That's that thing I sent you. What Pedro Pascal said in that interview?
No, what did he say?
It was him and Karen Dever and Bella Ramsey, and they were all talking about how harrowing this episode was and how emotional it was and how hard it was to do. And then Karen Dever and Bella Ramsey were like, and it's just going to get a lot more emotional. It's a really hard season. Like there's a lot of really, really rough things. And motherfucking Pedro Pascal looked at both and said, glad I don't have to be there for it. Look, you know what? It's one of those things and to your point, the same thing happened when the game came out. This game came out and people got pissed. There was a lot of anger about it. And so I get that if something like this happens and you're like, we love Joel. What is the show if it's not Joel and Ellie? So I get the feeling, but I also think that, and this is my opinion, at least so from what I know of the game already of Last of Us 2 and what I think from playing it thus far, is that sometimes when people do shit like that just for shock, it's not good and it's not earned. when people do something like this and it's a big story moment and they know what they're doing and there's a reason for it and it ties into the bigger emotional arc and themes of the story, then I think even as painful as it is, it's worth it. And I think this is one that's worth it.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
A successful swing like this is what takes
Yeah.
something from good to great.
Yeah, agreed. Well, that's our thoughts on this entire episode of The Last of Us, season 2, episode 2. Let us know what you thought about it. Did we touch on everything you felt we should talk about here in this review? Did we miss anything? Any Easter eggs, anything like that here that popped up in the episode? Let us know. What are your thoughts on Eugene? I don't know if that's in the game or not. So what do you speculate is going to happen with Eugene?
So Eugene is in the game. His little weed shop is in the game. The fact that he was a Firefly is in the game, but in the game, he died of old age and Joel did not kill him.
So yeah, what's your speculation on what do you think? Why do you think Joel killed him? Because apparently it was a fucked up death. So what is that? What happened? I want to hear about we want to hear about all of it. And where do you think we're going with all of these characters? And where do you land on the Joel versus Abby debate in terms of a level of psychopathy and reasoning for the things that they were doing? And what do you expect Ellie is going to do from here on out? Let us know there in the comment section. Shannon, what are we going to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media on Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies, on Instagram at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Thank you.
Go ahead and smash that like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he's got there. Leave your comments. What did you think of this episode? Where do you think things are going? If you know where things are going, don't spoil it for everybody else. Yeah, if you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments in the rankings so we go up and more people can find us. And as always, the best thing you can do is retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
There you go. We're dropping this on a Monday. We will also have a review for Sinners. A lot of you have been clamoring for us to review Sinners, so we will have a spoiler review for Sinners as well coming up in a day or so here from us. But thanks so much for watching this spoiler review of The Last of Us, and we'll talk to you next time with another brand new Geek Bite brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies.